helping keep modern Manx history alive.
Particularly when I wasn't there when he put through his application. What did he say? When he asked him where he got the information from.
How's it going?
Alright.
Stop talking, haven't you?
Yeah,
you
course, yeah. Well, this is subdued, though. We can't. We're not going to talk about it on camera.
I don't know what to talk about.
With Jeffrey.
Okay, yeah, because this is
Quite the team upstairs.
yeah. This is Eunice, for you first of all. In a way, it's going to be quite a change after 21 years. Or
This is my 21st year this year, yes. It's going to be quite unusual, but we've got Geoff there with us this year, and it'll be a new start, a new turnaround altogether.
Different for me too, because I've been to Ballaugh for 17 years, Pit Lane for 12 years, and now up to the control tower for the main commentary, and it'll be totally different. So I'm looking forward to it, but I think I shall miss being right in the thick of the action.
It's going to be hard to let go in a sense, because it is down there where it's all happening, and handing over.
I get the feeling that I shall be jumping up and down to get right back in amongst it, but I'm very proud to follow in Peter's footsteps, and I think all who are at the TD this year are missing his presence really. It's a very hard act to follow. Peter has commentated on every TD since Manx Radio started doing it in 1965, and that's an unparalleled record.
Okay, Maurice, so Glen Helen again for you?
Glen Helen again, I'm pleased to say, delighted to say in fact. I enjoyed it there, it's excellent, really good place to be.
How many years now?
Wish you hadn't asked me that. It must be 8 or 9, I think, since we moved up from Ballacrane. And of course I've got Ian Turnbull, my timekeeper, alongside of me, so looking forward to it after, well, it's almost 2 years absence, obviously. We were last there for the Grand Prix in the year 2000 with no racing at all in 2001, so really looking forward to it. Should be good.
Of course, I mean, you don't mind missing it. When you first came into this, you really didn't think about bikes, did you?
Well, that's very true, Paul, very true. I mean, we're talking some 20 odd years ago now, of course.
Yeah.
And initially it was a bit of a shock. I started off simply timekeeping in Ray Motors' showroom up there in Ramsey. And that was following a wrestling match that I'd attended at the Majestic back in 1975 or 6, I think, when a gentleman called Phil Barry was wrestling a Welsh champion called Howard Davis. Phil Barry, better known to us all as that well-loved gentleman Phil Kermode, who was a bit of a wrestler in his younger days. And Ian Cannell was the MC.
Thanks very much, okay.
And I'd gone up there with a couple of pals who were seconds for Phil Barry. And Ian Cannell had asked me to do the timekeeping for the wrestling match. And at the end of which he said, we're short of a timekeeper in Ramsey for the TT. So I went up to Ramsey with a stopwatch and a telephone, and my job was to phone the times through to the grandstand, and that went on until I eventually took over one of the regular timekeeping slots, and I time kept for a number of years for Tommy Robb out of Ballacrane. And then in 1979 Peter Neal, who was then the manager of Manx Radio, invited me to have a go at the commentary, and that I did, and the rest, as they say, is history.
What about when they moved the commentary points? How did you feel about that?
It turned out, I think, to be a really excellent move. I have to say, from time to time, as the machines, of course, got quicker, we were finding that it was more difficult to get a leaderboard, particularly at the lower end, and there was some criticism, I think, of that. And certainly the move to the 3 points that we now have, which are roughly equidistant and give us all round about 6 minutes, it is a lot easier to get certainly the first 12 through. And of course for that we rely on our timekeepers, but of course they're trying new technologies this year as well, so who knows where it'll go in the future.
What's it going to be like without Peter Neal?
We're all going to miss Peter. I think that's almost inevitable, and he's an impossible act to follow. I mean, we all know he was Mr. TT, we all know he knew everything about the TT. Not only was it his job, it was his hobby for most of his life, and yeah, he'd be sadly missed, of course he will. And particularly this year, it's bound to be poignant. We didn't have a race last year. Peter's left us since that time, and it's going to be tough, yeah. But I'm sure Geoff and the boys will cover, and I'm sure we'll make him proud as he watches us from a lofty position.
What's that for you as a broadcaster? Because I mean, it's anything you do really for us in the
yes, it is.
radio.
Yes, it is.
To have everyone listening to every word you say. I mean, you can really turn things around for people, listening to the races. What your eyes are having to translate that into to words.
I mean, I've always taken that the objective, firstly, is to inform. If you can do that and maybe entertain a little bit on the way, then really that's the role we have to play. Obviously, in a race like this, on a circuit of in excess of 37 miles, with staggered starts, then clearly it's important to be able to put that information out. That's what the people are listening for. They want to know who's where and who's positioned where, and that's why, as I said before, the great importance I attach to my timekeeper, particularly in Turnbull, and the other timekeepers, because they feed you that information. The hardest job is filling in when there are no bikes there. Anybody can call numbers out, and if you're fed information as you are by your timekeeper, simply list the times and the differences. But it's when there's nobody there that you've got real trouble.
What's the feeling for this year's T2?
Personally, I've got a good feeling. I think obviously people are wondering how we're going to react following on from the disappointment of not having a race last year, particularly with the foot and mouth. But also I think the absence of others, not only Peter Neal, we've lost a lot of good people, particularly members of the Southern Club who are not with us this time round. And of course we haven't got Fred out there at Ramsey, so it's a new ball game as far as the commentary is concerned. But as far as the TT itself is concerned, I think the whole island is looking forward to the return of the races. I'm hoping it'll be a great success, and I think it will be.
Do you have any ambitions to go to the Tower yourself one day?
No. Some discussions did take place following Peter's demise, but I can't follow Peter Neal. I have no intentions of doing so either. I'd rather be known as the man who did a half good job at Glen Helen than who did a lousy job in the Tower. So that's just my own personal view. I enjoy Glen Helen, I really do. It's a super spot. I know the people there. I know the course at that point, and I'm able, hopefully, to do a better job there than I could here at the grandstand. That's tough here at the grandstand, but I'm sure Geoff will do a great job too as the linkman.
Okay, Dominic. So here we are, 2002. Bikes are going past. A relief, isn't it, to you and everybody else?
Yeah, it's great to see it happening again. I'm not a biker as such. I mean, I learned to ride one in the army, and I realised you could kill yourself too easy. But these fellas have got the real grip of it, and I love to watch them. But so sad last year when we had to cancel. Now, as you probably get bored of hearing, we're back. Well, who is that actor that says, is it Schwarzenegger? See me, I'm back.
What's it looking like so far? I mean, because people worried that it's not going to be as busy.
Yeah, we're suffering at the moment of the Manx weather, which comes and goes. The god Manon has not been any kind to us this year. He's like foot and mouth wasn't last year. But hopefully it'll all come right for this week and next week.
But you're still tourist, aren't you?
I'm still tourist department. I'm responsible for marketing the Isle of Man.
So,
politically.
even today, there's some people saying that Steampack was saying that they reckon, even after the marketing campaign has gone out this year, some people didn't know it was actually taking place again.
Yeah, it's amazing, isn't it? It's amazing. Yeah, this happens in life. I mean, if you look at the talk to people at Cheltenham and Big Irish Race Festival, the amount of people they've lost because it was cancelled for 1 year is quite extraordinary. Lucky enough, we're not in that category this year. But the Cheltenham, you talk to anybody from Cheltenham, the hoteliers or the restaurateurs, it really took a dive, even though everyone said it's on again. I mean, the people just didn't turn up. They changed their pattern of life, you know.
I mean, so therefore, more important than ever that it did take place this year.
Yeah.
What do you think if it had been off for 2 years? Would it really
would have been more difficult. Been more difficult. Obviously, the longer time you'd have to reinvent it. I think after a couple of years, people would know the name, but new people coming up, you want to make sure that they get a feel for it, a taste for it. They get the bug. That's what you got to do. Keep the bug going. I think it'll be successful, and I think we'll build on it.
What about this conspiracy theory that it's going to be wrapped up in 2007?
World, particularly in politics, full of conspiracies. I mean, obviously anything can happen, but I can't see that us prepared to let it die. It would have to be killed by somebody. It wouldn't die of its own accord.
But people still have problems with this perception that people come to the Isle of Man and they die. You know, they ride on these roads and they die.
Yeah, so they do every day, and this next few months, you'll hear, I won't hear, that's the problem, of fellas being killed climbing mountains, a lot who weren't even qualified to climb them. At least here, these chaps are qualifying tonight. They're qualifying to take part in the Isle of Man CT. But there's fellas climbing mountains today who don't know one end of an ice axe from another. And it's talking as an ex-steeplejack, I can tell you that's a fact.
mean, that comes under marketing, isn't it? It's trying to get this perception across about how good
Yeah,
it is.
it's very hard because there's always somebody who wants to do you down. And of course, people will claim, what they don't claim is the number of years we've been running it. If you take it on the number of people over the period since, was it 107 years, 109 years now, isn't it? Situation is that it's very small in comparison to the people who were killed playing contact sports.
On the positive side then, how do you keep the whole product fresh?
I think itself keeps itself fresh with the improvements on motorbikes. And maybe that's one of the reasons. So the improvements on motorbikes, the types of materials, the safety regulations, this keeps rechanging itself every year. I think we can compete with all that. But I still believe this is the centre of the road racing of the world. And I think it will continue to be so.
How important is all the ancillary stuff that goes with it, from fun fairs to bushies and strippers?
You've got to entertain your clients in tourism. You've got people always want something else to do and to fill in the time, particularly the people who are coming for 10 days, 14 days. They want something to fill in time, so you've got to throw these side shows at them, if you like.
And last year, for the record now, what was the turnout?
Well, there's
Compared with normal, whatever.
still about 8 to 10,000 people arrived, even though the race was cancelled. I mean, that proves something, doesn't it?
Where do you get the crunch numbers? You presumably crunch
They're
them all the
very
time.
similar already. I know from the information coming. Obviously, it may not be up on the year before last, but there's always going to be that problem where people keep claiming we're full, for example. I know a lot of people who were turned off because they were told there was no accommodation.
Well,
Hoteliers were looking for 14 days or 10 days and weren't prepared to accept bookings for 5. I mean, this is their business, but this is what they were telling people, they're full.
it's gold chestnut there, but accommodation does seem a bit of a premium.
Yeah, obviously where the island's changing, the economy's changing, but we have a number of hotels in the pipeline, which our minister has spoken about, and no doubt if you ask him, and I know you will ask him and you tell him that I told him he was to tell you about the new hotels.
You'll ask.
I'm sure you will.
Oh, that's
David will
interesting.
tell you because we're not going to keep anything secret.
What is the average guy who comes to the TT? I mean, aren't they? It might.
There's no such thing as an average guy coming to
Is
see
it singing at 10, eating a can of baked beans, 15 pints of lager at night?
No, there's a number of these people here, and I know them, and who you might see in their letters are managing directors. I know one German who's the managing director of a major German company. I'm sure he wouldn't like me to sort of name the company. Well, he might do, actually, if he's a marketeer, and he might very well do. But the fact they make up all sorts of life, and the beauty of it is, as my wife has said, it's real sport. All these fellas here helping each other out. I mean, how many sports you see that in? You ever see a football manager helping another football team out? Never. But here, any of these fellas, if one of their colleagues had a problem, would be delighted to help. And even if it meant to him them beating their rider, that wouldn't come into it.
Well, finally, the weather's been a bit on the usual.
Iffy side, yeah.
And
It's not usual.
Well,
It's always worrying. It's don't think usual, but it's always worrying. But any cold water resort anywhere on this part of the equator, you're going to find the situation of this sort of weather, you know.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, so obviously it's all going to go to time.
Oh yeah, a lot of people will be worrying and planning to have a early breakfast and all these other things, but that's going to happen running at something as big as the TT.
Finally, how when you, this is slightly off the track, when you retire,
Who said I'm going to retire?
what would you like to be remembered for in all your time in politics?
I'd like to be remembered for many things, but first of all is my availability to people. Politically on progress, certainly working successfully to get the Isle of Man supplement, which I'm sure even you when you retire might appreciate. Free bus travel on the buses for the pensioners, which I know everyone appreciates, even you will do when you're not able to drive again. I'm very pleased about the way I've managed to convince the area I was involved in all over the last year, is that we had to change to survive in tourism. I mean, 500,000 people booking the space on turning up, but we've managed to survive, and I'm pleased about that. But what I'm most pleased about I suppose in politics is the fact is I can face everyone in my constituency or the Isle of Man and speak to them without them saying you've sat there and done nothing. I think everyone would say that about me. At least I'm prepared to work.
Will you ever retire then?
Of course I'll retire. I've promised the wife.
What do you do yourself?
I'll probably go work for Manx Radio.
Oh my God. So, I mean, Ben, from the younger point of view, you've been involved now for a few years for this radio station side of things. What do you actually do?
All sorts of things, really. I mean, I started off very much just behind the scenes, making music, making CDs, being a general production member of the team, and then gradually filtered my way through to doing stand-in shifts on air, and then 2 years ago now took over the evening slot on Radio TT, which of course links up with Charlie Williams and the team at the Hilton. And this year will be a mammoth session for me in terms of work. Each and every day I'm going to be on the desk for about 8 hours at least each day, many of them, race days in particular. I'm going to be on the studio desk for 13 hours a day, basically from 9 o'clock in the morning, running continuity on the races, all the different shows, and then my own programme in the evening, linking up, as I say, with Charlie Williams and guests at the Hilton. So it's going to be a real hard slog this year, but really looking forward to it because it's great fun, you know.
I think got nobody else that works at the station or something.
Something like that, and of course the money they offered was too good to refuse as well. They're always good to sort out with overtime during TT, so it's good.
How important do you think it is for the people coming over for TT to have the radio station doing what it does, fitting and changing?
I think it's incredibly important because Radio TT is the soundtrack of the festival, there's no doubt about it, in a number of different ways. Obviously, in terms of information, we can give up-to-the-minute details of what's happening, where people can go to stay, what people can do, all sorts of things that are going on around the island, what people can get involved with, and most importantly the commentaries, because it's one thing that struck me a couple of years ago just listening to the commentary team. I mean, it's world class. It's a world class operation. There's no doubt about it. You know, going between the grandstand, the pitch, the hairpin, Glen Helen, and that's vitally important. The fact that people can come over and tap into that, you know, information and just have a station, an information source 24 hours a day dedicated to their holiday and their trip and their enjoyment of the TT.
And how old are you now?
I'm 22 now.
Okay, have you actually seen any of the racing?
Not for years. It's funny really, because when I was a kid we used to go out and watch a bit of it, but of recent times you get so immersed in what's happening at the radio station and kind of making it an enjoyable experience for everybody else, obviously trying to make what's coming out the speaker as good as possible. You actually do lose sight a little bit of actually what is happening in terms of the races and getting out and actually sort of enjoying yourself and soaking up some of the atmosphere.
By the time people look back at this tape, I mean, they'll be quite aghast that there's only one radio station. Well, in fact, there's two this year. Still no live television or anything like that. So it's really Manx Radio, Straight Radio TT has pretty well it's the whole thing to itself, doesn't it?
It does. I mean, that's something, like you said, that might change. I mean, there's all sorts of discussions as to whether the TT is going to go on and do bigger and better things, or are its days numbered. You know, whoever you speak to, they've got a different opinion about things. But it would be nice, I think, that one day more media outlets would come over to the island, because I think it's good for the island anyway, the fact that we would have more, you know, live coverage of the TT, and that would be great to have live television coverage. I mean, whether it is a TV event, who knows? I mean, it certainly works very well on the radio. Whether that would transfer to TV, I'm not sure. But of course, you see lots of film crews around. Only driving into Douglas today, I saw a Japanese crew at Union Mills there. So it's good, and hopefully we'll see more over the week.
So what's your ambition? Is it one day to be a commentator or anything like that?
I don't think so, no, if I was to be honest. I mean, I know very, very little about bikes. I enjoy the atmosphere of the whole thing and being part of the festival, but I don't think I could ever make it to being an actual commentator, because they're incredible. You know, the late Peter Neal, who used to be able to just work out timings and where people should be at this particular time, and all the minute details is incredible. And I think it's something, if you are going to be a commentator, and I'm going to be a good commentator and an entertaining commentator, I think you really have to know your stuff, and above all else be absolutely passionate about the sport.
It's going to be different without Peter Neal this year?
I think it will be, without a doubt. Of course, the voice of the TT, been there for so many years, and it'll be strange not to have his voice and him being the anchorman at the grandstand. So it will be very strange just not to have him there as part of the commentary team. It'll be very odd, because he's been there for so many years and we've grown up with him, you know.
Finally, what about you then? Will you be at the race station forever?
Oh, who knows? That's that's a good question. Well, for the foreseeable future, yeah. I mean, it's good at the moment, and everything's going well. But for as for the future, who knows? You know, I would always consider every option. Let's put it that way.
Any more food? Help yourself now. Otherwise, it's going to pull in.
The place is always very keen.
If you don't want any more food, it's going to pull in.
The staff can go home then.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is the tourist board.
Yeah. You'll get fined if you call it the tourist board anyway. Department of Tourism, dear.
And leisure.
And leisure. Mr. Cretney, MHK, so I love you, darling. Kissy, kissy.
So Cretney's walking his John's.
Also, you meant to do that when you was in the baby notes months ago.
Ben, it's from Sarah.
Peter, back to do commentary work for Radio TT.
Yeah.
I just wanted your perception of the event as seen from your land, TT. How's it viewed over there in Germany?
You should, to start with, you should have been on the ferry today, on the ferry boat. It was all Germans from all over the place. So the TT has a very good reputation. I would say, as a true biker, you have to go to Daytona Beach, you have to go to probably a 24-hour race in Germany, Nürburgring, and you have to go to the TT. So it's in the top events of people going to races that are interested in motorcycle racing. Mind you, it has become, due to the currency exchange rates, very expensive for us to come over.
Euro business, or just general?
Well, yeah, euro on top of that, but the exchange rates over the last couple of years have been in favor of the British or the Manx. So it's a very expensive thing to do. Nevertheless, a lot of Germans come over from, anywhere in Germany.
Are German fans different from British fans? I mean, they're all over.
No. It's all like from 18 to, let's say, 70. They come over to watch the races, to have a good time, to party, to enjoy themselves, and get a bit of the kick they've read about. They've watched different videos. There's still a lot of first year's TT visitors from Germany, I suppose.
Does it deliver to them what they expect then? You get out there?
Definitely, yes. I mean, I know people who've been coming over since 1967. So it still is the kick, the burst, especially this year, for it hasn't been on for 2 years now.
What about last year when it was missing in 2001?
Well, I only know two people who did come over, and they came back and said, "Well, it's not the TT. It was a nice biker party, but it wasn't what we come over for. You've got to have the races. You've got to have the buzz going on. You've got to have the big parties with the races. You have to have been woken up 5 o'clock in the morning by the first guy in practice, like we did like 25 years ago. Whoa! How is it 5 o'clock already?"
Many Germans take part in the TT?
No, you got a couple of. I've met 4 today. It's a bit of. Germany is not very strong at the racing at the moment. Like the British motorcycle racing scene is a lot stronger, drivers-wise, and I suppose money-wise as well. Plus, you have the guys from England have the shorter way of England and Ireland, the shorter way to travel. So on top of that, for the guys, they have to bring several bikes. Other than that, it doesn't make sense. It's a very expensive trip to come over, and you just don't come here for one race. So you have to have like 1, 2, or probably 3 bikes to participate in the TT, which is an immense sort of money you need to have to come over as a privateer, and they are all privateers.
What do you estimate the actual contingent of Germans that come over here for the races on an average year? Do you have any idea?
Of how many?
Yeah.
Well, I would say it's something between roughly 15 to 20,000, I would say. I would hope. I would hope. It has been a couple of years ago. What it will be like this year, I don't know. I have no idea.
Media-wise, does it get much exposure?
Not on TV. I don't know of any TV crew this year, even though I'm sure there will be a couple. As far as I'm concerned, I think there will be a lot of TV coverage in a couple of weeks or months' time, probably. Well, the videos and the TV on the sports channels, England or Eurosport or whatever, they are watched. But well, I suppose as much as they did all the other years.
But, I mean, you're a journalist as such. You contribute yourself to the. I mean, you know how much interest there is out there, I guess.
Well, the interest with the TT it's a bit of it's a tricky thing. On the one hand, it's got nothing to do with the Grand Prix and all the other things. On the other hand, it's the road race festival. So it's very hard to actually say what people would like to come over for. As I said before, you have to come over. You have to come over. A lot of people are very critical about it, but a lot of people, on the other hand, like it as well. So it's either side, which way you decide.
Do you think it's got a future?
I hope so. I hope so. Personally, I would say I hope it's got a future till 2007, and whatever happens after that, I haven't got a clue. And I suppose they will get the 100 years in, and then, ouch. My personal point of view.
Is this your last TT, by the way? Someone told me.
Who spread that rumor?
So it's just a rumor. You are.
No. My last TT.
Yeah.
No way. No way. The only thing is, I would just like to sit. I would just like to sit on the wall and just watch a race. But you can't have all, can you? Sitting up in the tower. I mean, I had the pleasure of working with Peter Neal, which I'm very sad about when I heard the news. It was an honor. I mean, Peter was one of the great ones, and we lost two of the big players in the TT, Joey firstly, and then Peter. So it will be different up there in the tower. A lot different, I suppose. No, it won't be my last TT. It's the 15th time now.
They're not doing French commentary this year.
Yeah, sadly.
Is that the final? I mean, because it's always been a bit dubious how many French are over there anyway.
It's Mavis was she was doing the same job as I am, which is great. I will miss her up there again. I don't know how many French people. I haven't got a clue. And it's always nice to be international. I mean, you got English, you got French, you got the Germans. You covered all of Europe, basically.
Take us through your duties up there. What's it like?
It could be sometimes when race has been postponed. It could be very, very exhausting. You sit up there 8 hours, 10 hours, not knowing what's going on. But other than that, time is flying by. The race starts and it's just like, and you seem to think, 20-minute lap, 6 laps, it's just like all of a sudden it's gone. There's always something's going on, and you can hear the commentators out there on the course, on the headphones, and you have to concentrate on what's going on yourself. So it's if the race is on, time goes by like that. It's a very, very nice thing to do. I'm part of the TT. What more can you want?
Please subscribe to the R of Man TV archive channel. Thank you.